So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
We're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Creation Myths. Tonight, we are going to cover another one of the talks from the 2025 Genesis Apologetics Conference. Tonight, we are going to cover, we are doing Randy Guliuzza, who is the president of ICR, Institute for Creation Research. Before we get to any of that nonsense, I have two guests who need to introduce themselves. We've got Zach Hancock and Dapper Dinosaur. And I should say Dr. Zach Hancock and Dapper Dinosaur. So joining me for this one is an evolutionary biologist and a dinosaur. We're going to talk about Randy Guliuzza. Zach, take a minute to introduce yourself and please plug your channel while you do it.
Hello everyone. My name's Zach. I'm an evolutionary biologist that specializes in population genetics. I have a YouTube channel at TalkPopGen, where I do a little bit of evolution education, some pseudoscience debunking, and then the history and philosophy of science, that sort of thing. I'm really excited about this one. I've been wanting to talk about Randy Guliuzza for quite some time with the whole CET stuff. I find just absolutely bizarre and really fascinating. Like, as a population geneticist, it's a very interesting idea. So very excited to finally get to address it.
Thank you. And folks, I should note, Zach and Dapper are both linked down below. If for some reason you are here and you're not subscribed to either of them, remedy that immediately. Dapper, who are you?
So I am possibly the least credentialed of all the science friends. But I'm also the oldest of the science friends, so I have that going for me. Basically, I am just sort
60
of
million years.
Well, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I was like RJ, but no, yeah, right.
Yeah. RJ has nothing. You're all babies.
Took me a minute.
So yeah, I run a channel where I most of what I do is debunking young Earth creationism, although not all of it. I've done some flat Earth stuff. I'm currently working on a geocentrism video series. I've done a little bit of pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology stuff, but it's mostly young Earth creationism. And I think I was selected for this because I have gone through all of the papers that Randy Guliuzza cites that he thinks supports his continuous environmental tracking bullshit, and found that not only do none of them support it, they all pose problems for it. And I think that's why I'm here, is because I have spent far too much of my time trying to actually source critique Randy Guliuzza on this thing, which, by the way, I still don't know how continuous environmental tracking is even supposed to work at the most basic level, right? Because we know that there are genetic differences between different species, some of which are adaptive, and he has yet to propose any mechanism to actually change nucleotide sequences as a result of continuous environmental tracking. So I'm like, okay, you're not even at step one of this, of having this be an idea that we could test, right? So I don't know what we're doing. But anyway, yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much. And here's the fun part with Randy Guliuzza, and as we'll talk about towards the end today, continuous environmental tracking. He doesn't know how it works either. We don't know how it works. He doesn't know how it works. No one knows how it works.
It's
that's
not even an idea yet. It's just wouldn't it be cool if we didn't have to do natural selection? Yeah, Randy, that would be cool.
Yeah, it's a catchphrase. It's a catchphrase at this point. So before we go any further, just want to thank Meat Permits Tad for $2. Yay, 2 PhDs and a not a linguist.
That's correct.
That is correct. Yeah. That is technically correct, which is the best kind. So folks, just to remind you, this is a talk from the 2025 Genesis Apologetics Conference. This is one of many talks, and they are numbered according to where they are in the overall conference. The whole conference is linked down below if for some reason you want to subject yourself to the whole thing, as I have. And so we're not going to cover every talk in this conference, but we are going to cover the relevant science talks in this conference, of which, unfortunately, the one we are going to view now is one of them. So that's where we're going to get going, but we do have another super chat that came in just in that moment from Lieutenant Matt the Moose Broker. I'm assuming that's Lieutenant LT.
It is.
Matt the Moose Broker for $5. I believe the key to understanding CET is being a blithering idiot such that big words seem very impressive.
That does seem like it.
That's fair. That's fair.
You can also tell that's Lieutenant Matt because his profile picture is Lieutenant Matt from Star Trek, who is in fact a beluga whale.
There we go. All right, so let's I have a whole bunch of time points that I went through and timestamped the whole thing, kind of annotated it, so I know what I expect to see here. But Zach or Dapper, if either of you have a specific moment that you've kind of pulled out, make sure you let me know when we get there so I don't accidentally skip it. And with that, let's put Randy on stage, and I'm just going to let the first 50 seconds play because it's just his what I'm going to do here tonight, and then we'll get into some, God help us, geology.
Oh no.
Blessing to be here, and this is my third year in a row. Last year I was assigned the topic to speak on cutting-edge research, how it explains engineered adaptability, and believe it or not, they gave me that topic again. So I want
because you sucked the first time. They wanted you to get it right.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add a little bit to that topic and not only explain the cutting-edge research we're doing on adaptability, which I'm going to hold right to the end, but I would like to discuss 3 other areas of research that ICR is doing and then give you hopefully a one-sentence answer to something you might hear, an objection or a pushback or an assertion that some evolutionists might claim one way or another. But first, I have...
All right. Now he's just going to plug social media and various books that they have for sale and everything. Yeah. Before we get to there, I just want to a couple things I want to note. First, linked in the chat on YouTube, bingo cards. It's a pinned comment at the very top of the chat. Bingo cards. Everyone should click that link and play along. And here's what you should do if you're playing bingo with us. First of all, I've watched this. I know people are going to get bingo because he covers so much stuff in here and he just hits all the tropes. So you're going to get bingo. Play along with us. And when you get bingo, shout it out in the chat on YouTube. And then also tell us the things that got you bingo. I want to hear exactly what it is. So everybody, play along for bingo. And then also, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, I also want to make the point that and I'll try to drive this home maybe a little bit later when he gets into it, but he's going to talk about adaptability, but nothing that he actually is going to present on has anything to do with the concept of adaptability, which has a very specific definition in quantitative genetics. And so I'll explain it when we get there, but I just want to point out that at no point is he ever going to say anything about what adaptability is, and nothing he presents on is actually about adaptability.
But Zach, you're forgetting one of the best of the creation tricks from the Creation Trick series, which is just redefine words.
This is true. This is true.
Just have your own definitions for things, and then it doesn't matter.
He actually never even supplies a definition, right? He just goes off as if he's redefined it.
That could be another trick. Just say words without defining them.
Just say words in any order without meaning.
The thing is, if you watch enough Randy, it's not that hard to figure out what he means by adaptability. What he means is just anything that makes an organism better able to survive where it finds itself, whether that be phenotypic plasticity, whether that be behavioral flexibility, whether that be epigenetic changes, or whatever. If any of it seems like that would be a thing that organism would be happy about, if it could conceptualize that idea, then Randy's going to call it adaptation. So he will say that plants releasing additional pesticides into their leaves in response to detecting snail mucus, that's adaptation. Is it adaptation under the actual evolutionary biology definition? Not at all. That would be like saying that you pulling your hand away from a hot stove is adaptation. It's exactly the same kind of deal.
That's what he would call that adaptive, though. You moved away from the heat source. That's an adaptive behavior. He would call that the act of doing it. You adapted to the presence of the heat by moving further away from it. Yeah.
And the thing that gets him is because it's so broad then he can just smuggle in the idea that he doesn't need to worry about the actual definition of adaptability because he's explained adaptability in all these other ways. That's what he's doing there. It's just sleight of hand.
Yeah. So I got a couple of super chats as we're just hanging out here. So actually, this is not a super chat, but I want to highlight it anyway. Randy is a smoldering mass of raw charisma. That's true. It's bad. All right, we got Lieutenant Matt, the Moose Broker. I think it's very obvious that INT was his dump stat.
Yeah.
It's
but
funny.
Somehow charisma is too.
It's true. It's funny that he phrases it that way because I actually, when I do human evolution in class, because I'm a giant nerd. For those of you who haven't picked up on that, giant nerd. And so when I talk about the trade-offs inherent to human evolution, I talk about how we're min-maxing and we put all our stat points into intelligence and dexterity, and we dumped strength and constitution.
Humans did.
Yeah, we did. All right, and then lastly, we got from Petite Flower for $2 super chat for bingo. Thank you, I appreciate that. Bingo is fun. Everyone should play bingo with us. Let us continue on. I'm going to jump ahead because we don't need to watch the part where he's just like plugging social media and books and stuff. So now we can go to approximately 2 minutes and a few seconds. That'll be fine. And folks, you all know how this works. We're going to watch. One of the three of us will call a timeout at any point, and then we will dunk on Randy as we feel appropriate. Here we go.
Where you can find us. Okay, I've done my duty to my organization, and I have covered those things, but let me talk about our geological research. This is pretty profound. Nobody, no college, nobody has done a research project along these lines. And what we're talking about is evidence.
I know we're going to do the thing where we stop every 4 seconds, but the thing that he's going to show you has to do with a map of like showing the correlation of different layers in the geological column across like the planet. And to say that no one's ever done a thing of that kind is funny because literally the first book on geology is that, where you're looking at layers that are matching across distances. And it's like, look, it's one layer here and it's the same layer over here. It's
how geology started as an academic field rather than just people picking up cool rocks. The only thing that's unique is the source of data that he's gathering. As far as I know, no one has used his source of data to build these maps before. But they're just the maps that everyone's been building for hundreds of years.
Literally like centuries. This is, okay. It's just that line is just, wow.
For a worldwide flood that you can find right in the rock record. And like all things, we are here to lift high the name of Jesus. So we begin with the biblical model. We begin with the truth and the historical fact of the world.
Hang on a second.
So I have to mention the title on this slide here, a model built on biblical and observable data. There is nothing in the Bible that is scientific data, right? The scientific data are empirical observations from either just going out and observing or doing experiments that you can then use to do things like test hypotheses. Nothing in the Bible is that. Even if the Bible were all literally 100% true and historical, even the contradictions, it still wouldn't be scientific data because it's a different kind of thing, right? It's just as much of a category error as saying that your ice cream cone is your mode of transport. That's not what's going on here.
It's bad.
Wide flood, and there should be evidences of that flood in the rock record. So we take the reality of this worldwide flood, we combine it with those things that you see on the right-hand side of the screen there. Those are drill cores. And every time someone's looking for oil,
did he just reverse the scientific method and start with his conclusion and then go looking for evidence? Is that what he just said he was doing?
Not only did he go looking for evidence, Dapper, he went looking for evidences, which is a word that creationists love.
To be fair, that's broadly a beloved word in Christian apologetics writ large.
Fair.
So it's not just the creationists.
Fair point. That's fair.
For some other mineral, the company will drill into the ground, and you can see them on the screen. They will take these cores out of the ground. And as this material comes out, there's a geologist who identifies everything that's coming out of that.
We know
and it is logged. It's geologically logged, and these boreholes are usually public access. And there's literally thousands of them from all over the world. Well, let me give you an idea of how many of these ICR has gained access to, and we have cataloged. On the screen here, every one of those dots is a borehole that ICR has analyzed. Now, does this look like...
Okay, so that's cool. Like, I think that's legit cool. You know, you're analyzing thousands of boreholes across the world. That's cool. I'm down with that. Good job, ICR. That's the only time those words will come out of my mouth ever, probably. We did get a super chat while we were watching Randy do Randy things. It was from our friend Roshan, a localized standard compare color for what I don't know where these names come from half the time, and I love it so much. For $1.99, how does CET deal with the aquatic ape facts? Well, that's a great question.
Actually, I know one of them, which is that humans have a bunch of subcutaneous fat, and I know that Randy uses a paper about epigenetics affecting baseline metabolic rate in humans following famine events in China. And apparently the answer is just like, well, sometimes epigenetics happen, and that's continuous environmental tracking, which, I mean, okay, if that's what you want to call continuous environmental tracking, then that's great, but that doesn't refute natural selection in any way at all. Yeah, we know about epigenetics. That's not something that evolutionary biologists are unaware of.
Yeah, unless you talk to certain third way people and they think we've never heard of it before.
Yeah. Well,
Zach knows. Zach knows what I'm talking about. Hey, Zach, just out of curiosity, are you going to cover the Dennis Noble, Casey Luskin chat?
Oh my God. I've listened to about half of it. I really struggled. It's one of those things where I turn it on, 3 or 4 minutes go by, and I just have to pause it. I was
it's really
I just want to shake something,
Yeah, it's
and
really
bad. Okay, I calm down, press play again. And so eventually I might try to do something, but that whole conversation was bizarre and just really got under my skin. So we'll see if I can pull off something on it.
It was weird. I also want to highlight this because I had the exact same thought from Prixie. Overthrow Dapitalism Purple gained access to. How that sound nefarious? Yeah, it sounds like they broke into the vault with all the core samples, where the sentence before he was like, these are public. Well, what do you mean gained access to? You mean you looked them up?
Yeah. It's like saying I gained access to the library.
Exactly. Yeah, you walked through the front door.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to make it sound fancier, like we've obtained this information. I don't know, that just sounds fancier than we Googled it because it's freely available,
Yeah. Apparently Eric F said it first. Thank you, Eric F. Everyone's commenting on that. I'm glad that jumped out to everybody. That was good.
A lot of work? Yeah, it's a ton of work. It is a lot of work. No major research institute in the world has done this. And we have cataloged all of these boreholes there, and that's a picture like an artist's rendition of the different type of layers that you might find in one of those boreholes. But if we catalog all of those boreholes,
I'm glad their CGI guy knows how to use a color ramp and a gradient texture. Good job, everybody. We did it. You passed what is it, CGI day 2.
Maybe they would give us evidence of the flood, and they do. But they even give us evidence of things prior to the flood. We can take those boreholes and we can line up the layers from one part of the world to the other part of the world. And it gives us a map. And this is an incredibly good map of what the pre-flood world looked like before continents began to split apart. We can identify where they joined, the places they joined, and we can identify which were highlands and low.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
You realize that what he's showing you is just early Jurassic breakup of Pangea. Yeah. That's literally what's going on here.
Yeah, he's describing plate tectonics, but faster.
Right.
He's doing CPT, essentially, catastrophic plate tectonics. He's just this happened fast. It's well, no.
So all that he's doing is he's just saying, wow, look at all these correlations. that everyone already knows about. That's why no one has done this, right? Because there's nothing to be learned by doing this, really, fundamentally. And so all he's doing is just showing us what we already knew. There's no surprises here.
Counterpoint. This proves the flood.
It literally does nothing of the sort. Because here's the thing, right? We know what to look for if there had been a giant global flood, right? We know what to look for. It would be some kind of like high energy deposit that's graded, it's thick, it's correlatable worldwide, except maybe for a few places where it's eroded away, which we could also find the erosion from that says that this is why you don't have it, right?
Right, you would find the erosion where you have layer 1, 2, 3, but then in some places layer 2 has eroded away and 1 and 3 are directly adjacent. Yeah.
So it's not a mystery, right? What we would expect to see if there was a global flood. And we just don't. It's just not there, right?
Yeah.
So we know there wasn't a global flood for the same reason that we know that there's no planet between, like, I don't know, Venus and Earth. Because we looked around in the sky and it just wasn't there. So then what do? We said, well, there isn't one. Okay, great. And if you want to propose there is one, you're going to have to give data that isn't just reproducing the results that everyone else already got.
Also,
it looks like there's nothing there. Have you thought maybe there's something there?
I'll just add to this. Again, I do not understand geology, not my field, but I do know, because when I was a kid, I learned about dinosaurs. I do know that there is a global, worldwide iridium layer from the asteroid impact from what was called at the time the KT boundary. Now it's the KPG boundary, right? From that asteroid impact, because it was a single global catastrophic event, and you can look anywhere in the world and there is that layer. It is there, and it's always in the same place relative to other layers, right? Yep. There is no such layer for a global flood in any place where creationists say the flood happened.
Right. In fact, they often say that it's at the same place as the actual iridium layer, but then there's no mechanism for an iridium layer during a flood.
How are you going to get an iridium layer from it? That is the dumbest thing. I mean, look, I
know what their answer is.
What's their answer? I don't even want to.
So their answer is that during the flood, there was accelerated volcanism, and volcanoes, like volcanic ash, is higher in iridium. And that's true. It is higher in iridium.
But yeah, but not that much higher.
Yeah, the problem is that when it's high, when they say it's higher than like the normal crust of the Earth in iridium.
Yeah, which is virtually zero. Like very little.
It's a couple orders of magnitude too low in intensity to result in the ash or in the iridium layer that we actually find.
Right.
So that's the first problem. And then the second problem is that the iridium layer is not volcanic ash.
Yeah, no.
So on both fronts, we're like, nope, that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's clearly an asteroid impact, and
we know the crater. It's right there. You can see it.
The crater. Also, we know what floods look like geologically. We know what they look like. There isn't one.
Yeah, it's not a mystery. We have lots of flood records around the world in various times. So we know what they look like. In some cases, they're of like absurd proportions that has never been seen in historical times and would be considered to be one of the greatest disasters that has ever occurred on Earth during human history if they were to occur right now. Like, so, we're talking floods that cover whole like quarters of a continent.
Like my favorite example is when the Mediterranean dam broke.
Yep, that's a good one. I like the Channel Scablands in Washington and Oregon. That's a good one too.
So we have a couple super chats and a couple other chats I want to highlight. We've got from Dutch, the Place to Hostilities Tunicate for $2. We may have dumb strength, but we can throw. That's right. That's what the INT gets you, because we understand leverage in physics. There you go.
When you're rolling to hit on a thrown weapon, it's actually dexterity that you're using for your
dex. Fine. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, we also have, I think this is a great idea from Prixie Overthrow Dapitalism Purple. Zach, just live stream and watch it live. We can all suffer together.
It will just have to be one of the times when I have more bandwidth and brain power. I've got too much stuff going on IRL to suffer through this.
When you do it, I'm happy to sit there and suffer with you.
It will definitely be a drinking game.
It will be. We can all play bingo / drinking game together.
Yeah.
We got Maya just dead on. All he's doing is lying. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Lieutenant Matt, for $2, very generous, Lieutenant Matt, the Moose Broker. Don't feel like you have to keep super chatting, but rainbows give off iridium radiation.
See, as a Starfleet officer, he doesn't actually need his money for anything, so he can just give it all to you.
Look, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, you don't, like, seriously, I'm just sitting here screwing around, laughing at Randy Guliuzza. I don't deserve any money for this. Okay, let us continue listening to Randy.
Lands, in which were the shallow continental type of oceans and the deep oceans. That is really good information.
I mean, he's not wrong. It just doesn't help.
Fair enough, Randy, but whatever.
Information. And on top of that, and this is really the punchline, we can figure out what these continents, the layers on the continents, look like after the flood, and we can even make some conclusions about the flood. And what you're seeing there, you're seeing several different layers. The yellow is the sandstone layer, and we can demonstrate definitively by this borehole log analysis that you can find the same sandstone layer on every continent on the planet.
Yep. Pause that
Same
for a second.
one.
That's just geology.
It is, not only is it just geology, but I want you to notice that they all tend to cluster, except for Australia, which we're going to talk about in a second. They tend to cluster around the Atlantic. Because what he's not telling you about the sandstone that's correlated across Africa and North America and whatnot is that virtually all of it is actually desert sandstone. Because what you're looking at are the remains of the Pangean interior desert. Because Pangaea was so big, moisture had trouble making it into the interior of Pangaea. And so as a result, for basically the entire history of Pangaea after the Atlantic, well, I guess the proto-Atlantic or whatever closed, all that area is just a desert, and it's depositing desert sandstone. That's what we're looking at here. And you know what is really tough to deposit underneath a flood? It's desert sandstone.
I would imagine.
Yeah, and if you're wondering how do we know that it's desert sandstone, well, there are some ways we can tell. You can look at the cross-bedding angles because sand under the air has a different angle of repose than sand under the water. So you can actually tell whether or not sand dunes were deposited underwater or in the air. You can look for things like fossilized footprints from terrestrial animals. There are even cases where we have fossilized raindrops. I happen to know that some of the Pangean sandstone from the desert that are around where I live in Arizona actually have fossilized raindrops. And I don't know if you know this, but when rain hits a flood, it just kind of gets absorbed into the general mass of water.
You mean it doesn't make an impression like Princess and the Pea style, like all the way down?
Yeah, no, it doesn't, actually. Weird, right? So, like, we know that this is mostly desert sandstone. And Australia is a little bit weird because Australia, it didn't just kind of neatly separate away from the rest of Pangaea, like sort of Africa and South America, North America, Europe did. It hung around with the Indian subcontinent and Antarctica. And so its position was a little weird. It had a funny trajectory. So before we continue, I just want to highlight this from Corey Bronson for $5. Thank you, Corey. This super chat is a quarter of the price of a movie ticket and supports something yielding a longer period of entertainment. It's worth it to me. That is both very generous and very pragmatic. And also, I love how we're half an hour in and Carrie is like, yeah, this is going to be a while. This is going to be a while.
We're going to be here for a while.
Everyone get comfortable. This is not going to be your quick in and out 90-minute feature film here. We're hanging.
That's why I have a whole handle of gin.
This is didn't the Brutalist recently sweep, right? Was it the 3 hours and 50-minute movie?
Did it sweep up? See, I wasn't even paying attention. Did it sweep a whole bunch of stuff? I heard it was good.
Pretty sure it did, yeah.
I heard it was good. This is a random architectural aside. I think brutalism is really cool. And also the name does not come from the fact that it's like brutalism. It's French. It's concrete. Anyway, brutalism is awesome. I love mid-century
I'm only
brutalism.
now realizing that this is a church they're in.
Oh.
The drums gave it away for me.
Yeah, that's what gave it away for me too.
I just figured they had a band.
I just want somebody to just be like at some point during this talk.
That would be great.
Yeah, I don't know. this kind of church always, like, I always have to think about whether or not it's a church because it doesn't look anything like what I associate in my brain with a church. So yeah, but this is definitely a church.
Yeah.
It's more mega church vibe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in my brain, I grew up Catholic, so in my brain, this does not look like a church, but that's a very specific experience. Yeah.
This would be the worst Catholic church ever.
Or the most fun.
Truly.
No, probably
the thing the Catholics have going for them is like how beautiful their churches are, right?
And the organs. Like the organ music. Organ music is just great. Yeah, that's I always appreciated the organ music.
One thing I love about organs is that organs historically were not standardized. So when you learn to play the organ, you learn to play that specific organ. And if you went to a different church with a different organ, like the sequence of the keys was basically the same, but like all the little knobs and dials and whatnot, all completely different. The pedals different. And yeah, like, so you can't just learn the organ. You learn this organ.
That organ, yeah. Okay, that is a digression. Let's get back to Randy. Are we almost done with the geology part? We're almost done with geology, I swear. Which is to say there's like a minute and a half left.
Not only that, we can find that same sandstone layer is in the same relative sequence of other layers, that's what the blues and the reds are, on every continent on the planet.
Wow, you
and this is just a little
steno from the 1700s. Good job, Randy.
Yeah, and Smith did the same thing. The very famous Joseph Smith map of the United Kingdom with all the different layers, and yeah, it's congratulations.
Snippet of the research. This goes all the way through the flood. So if someone was asking you for evidence for the flood, you could say this. Did you know, and they won't, did you know that borehole analysis shows the same layers in the same relative sequence on every continent on the planet?
I did know that.
And then you...
Yeah, that's...
Actually, technically I didn't, because I never really thought about like oil exploration boreholes separately from just geology in general. But if you would ask me, hey, do you think that oil exploration boreholes would show correlations in geological layers across continents? I would have said, well, yeah, of course they do.
Yeah.
How could they not?
So let me get this another few seconds, and then I want to pause for a super chat.
How would that happen?
Pangea.
What mechanism would do that?
Wind.
You will not have a comeback. But you can say,
I just had two.
Just had two.
I just had two.
Just had two. Two comebacks.
Mechanism that would do that, that would be a worldwide catastrophic flood. Flood.
If they were flood deposits, then yeah, sure. Unfortunately for Randy,
they're not.
They're not.
They are not.
So, you know, little bit of problem.
A couple more comments to highlight here. I just, again, having grown up Catholic, I just have to appreciate meat permits Tad. I grew up high church Episcopalian, all the architecture, none of the guilt. Nice. Nice. And then here you go, Lieutenant Matt, the Moose Broker, for another $5. Lieutenant Matt, thank you. How to confuse a worship pastor, teach them a fifth chord.
I have listened to a lot of contemporary music, and that is accurate.
That's funny.
It's like, hey guys, how do we play church music? It's like, well, you learn 4 chords, and then you just play them in order, and every once in a while you mix them up just a little bit.
You play it the way I play guitar. You learn the 4 chords, then you can play a bunch of songs. Yeah, exactly. All right. We're almost done with this section. I'm going to let this go to about 7:20, and then we're done with geology. I promise.
Okay. Does that mean I have to shut up?
No, and then it gets worse.
Oh, good.
And we can also show, if we were to go through this, that the flood was progressive in nature. In other words, it continued to rise for the first 150 days of the flood, just like the Bible says, and then the waters receded, and that it was a recent flood. On our book table in the back, we don't have very many of them, but there is a DVD called Carved in Stone. Carved in Stone.
What year was this?
And that will just...
This was 2025.
Okay, so he's talking DVDs, huh?
Yeah, this was in February.
I mean, why not just have...
I think it was February.
Get some Betamax tapes out there, Randy.
We skipped the part where he made the joke about Twitter being X. We just skipped that part. Like, we're not up to, it's Randy. What do you want?
I mean, as far as I know, Kent is still selling VHS tapes. So, like, you know what,
Which
Randy,
is amazing.
You're doing fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's fine.
I'll put your DVD into my. I don't even know if I have a DVD player.
I literally don't have a device that can like use discs. That computer has a disk drive, but
My old computer had a disk drive, but this one
doesn't. Anything.
Yeah. The things that I'm talking about here today. Your one sentence is, what? Did you know that we can find the same layers in the same relative order, if you want to say sequence order, on every continent on the planet? That is a powerful, powerful statement.
Sure.
Okay. So that's it for geology.
Technically, that statement that he just made isn't wrong. It's just not helpful, which is a theme that I'm seeing right now, because I know what's next, and it's also something that, like, not wrong, but not helpful to your position.
Not helpful. Yeah. So, folks, you'll notice, and a few of you in the chat have specifically asked, when is this going to get to continuous environmental tracking? And the answer is eventually. This is a 33-minute talk, and it's somewhere in the 20s that he finally gets there. But he goes through all these other arguments first that he thinks help young Earth creationism. And as you can see on screen, the next one is soft tissue and fossils. And I just want to appreciate, before we hear anything that he says, ICR research on soft animal tissue found in solid fossil bones. And most of what he talks about has nothing to do with ICR.
Yeah. But I also want to say, to be fair to him, that the topic that he was given was like current research in creationism, not continuous environmental tracking. So while that might be for us to highlight, technically, based on what he was asked to talk about, he is doing what he was asked to.
I think he was asked to talk about like an adaptation, though, or something. Like he
does also. But when he said that the topic was cutting edge research in creationism.
Oh, okay.
And if that's the topic that he was handed, then to the degree that there is such a thing as cutting edge research in creationism, he is doing that thing.
And we appreciate it because it means we can have a really fun game of bingo.
Yes.
So let us hear about this. So this section on soft tissue, for those of you playing bingo, you're going to get a lot of soft tissue boxes here. This one goes to about 12 minutes and 15 seconds. So we're really got like 5 minutes for this section. So let's do it, and let's try to get through this relatively efficiently. God help us.
Number 2, ICR research on soft animal tissue found in solid bones. Let me give you a little bit of the background on this. This has been known for quite some time. A researcher named Mary Schweitzer, way back in the early 1990s, discovered something that looked like flexible tissue in dinosaur fossils. Now, you and I were taught that fossils were like solid rock. There shouldn't have any kind of soft tissue in them. And then in 2005, she found some more of this, and she found what looked like blood vessels, flexible blood vessels in these bones, and these bones were claimed to be 65 million years.
There you go.
Okay, so he's not going to read this, but he says incompletely fossilized T-Rex. That's not a phrase that actually means anything. So one of the problems is that outside of paleontology and taphonomy, people often use the words fossilized and permineralized interchangeably, but that's not actually how that works in paleontology. Fossils are the remnants of living things, whether it be body fossils or trace fossils, that are old enough to be fossils. And usually the cutoff is given as about 10,000 years. So 15,000-year-old mummified bird foot, that's a fossil, even if it has original soft tissue, even if it's not permineralized at all. So that's not what any of those words mean in the technical sense. And while I know that he's giving this talk to a lay audience, at no point do I think Randy actually understands that those words don't work that way in the technical literature. So what he's doing is giving you this weird fake impression that like this is like a fresh dinosaur bone or something. It's not. It was permineralized in terms of replacing the hydroxyapatite with other rocks. I don't remember exactly which ones. But even if it wasn't, you know what hydroxyapatite is? It's already just a rock. Like your bones are made of rock and collagen, basically.
Bone is a mineral.
Yeah.
Mineral matrix. Yeah.
The hard part of your bone is biomineral. It's a rock already. The not so hard parts of your bone are like blood vessels, collagen fibers, osteocytes, osteoblasts, all that nonsense. So it's just a little... It rubs me the wrong way as a guy who likes paleontology when he says incompletely fossilized T-Rex. It's like saying an incompletely fertilized embryo. Like, it's either fertilized or it's not, man. Like, what do you mean it's incompletely fertilized? It's just hanging out there with, like, the spermatozoa kind of poking through the cell membrane, but not really? What are we talking about here? That's all I have. Sorry.
It's bad. Okay, let's see. Oh, you're going to love this. We're going to let this go for about a minute-ish, maybe longer. We'll see how much we could stand of the pictures he's about to show.
Now, what's powerful about this is everybody on the planet has dealt with meat and skin and tissue. Everyone here has. And every one of us knows that
we're all made of it, so sure.
In that way, yeah.
Yeah.
And every one of us, whether you have a PhD or not, intuitively would know that this tissue would not last for 65 million years. That's like an incomprehensible amount of time.
Hey, intuition is a really dumb way to do science, Brandy. Intuition misleads you at least as often as it indicates the right direction in science.
That's like the point of science is to remove the biases inherent to intuition.
Right. Intuition might tell you where to look for answers or what kinds of things demand answers in science. But if you're like, well, my scientific conclusion is intuition, that's just vibes, and science doesn't run on vibes. You're like, well, yeah, a 60 million year old soft tissue doesn't pass the vibe check. Okay, cool. I don't care. Your vibe check is literally meaningless.
But there it is. In 2005, she published a paper published in Science, and that's some of the pictures of the soft tissue. And here's some of the other ones as well. Look at that. That's a blood vessel.
Yep.
But not only is it a blood vessel, it has what inside of it? A blood cell.
Maybe.
65
but that's
million
not what Mary Schweitzer said.
Years? Really?
Yeah.
Not only that, she found
well,
others.
66, but
whatever.
So the one thing I want to point out is that Mary Schweitzer, and as far as I know to this day, does not have data sufficient to conclude that these are red blood cells. What they are is degraded organic remains that are morphologically consistent with blood cells, with reptile blood cells specifically, which means, are they blood cells? Maybe. I personally think it's likely. I bet Dr. Schweitzer does too. But can we say, with the same confidence that we can say that those are blood vessels, that those are blood cells? Absolutely not. We do not have the data for that.
You know, if this was a thing that happened because these fossils are only 4,400 years old, right? Because if they're flood deposits, there should be a lot of them, and ICR could probably get, Jeffrey Tompkins out there to like futz around with these cells and the DNA inside them if they're there.
Yeah, I mean, 4,400 years is not enough time to guarantee that there's no sequenceable DNA. Like
we have DNA sequences that are 10 times that old.
Yep. So like, if Randy were right about the timing here, then Jurassic Park should be possible. We should be able to clone dinosaurs.
And before I know what many of you are thinking, you're thinking red blood cells don't have nuclei. Hold that thought. Give me 1 second.
Look like nucleated blood cells with blood vessels.
There you go.
Well, to be fair,
it's mammals that don't have nuclei.
Right. So others do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that was clear, though, that we're dealing with potential nuclei.
Nucleated blood cells is the primitive character for tetrapod for vertebrates, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mammals are weird in that while they produce red blood cells, the cells expel their own nuclei.
That is weird.
Yeah.
But you could fit more hemoglobin in them.
I mean, it's true, and it's not like they're going to go on to reproduce afterwards anyway. They're being produced by other cells, so yeah.
Whatever. All right, let's keep going.
Her discovery caused quite a stir. Schweitzer's dangerous discovery, which Discover magazine said, she erased the line between past and present. You better believe it does.
We drink for citing
Because
pop
everybody...
Citing what?
Pop sci.
Always pop
Yeah.
sci.
Yeah, because here's the thing. It's not a dangerous discovery. That's what you call clickbait from the early 2000s when, like physical magazine sales were still like a real thing that happened outside of grocery stores. This is just some journalist working for Discover magazine being like, that would be a really cool, look, it's even alliterated, dangerous discovery. That's all that's happening right now. Nothing was dangerous. No one's career was ruined. Certainly not Dr. Schweitzer's. She became famous off the back of this.
It didn't kill anybody. Like,
right.
Plutonium was a dangerous discovery.
Yes.
Right. So,
radiation in general, especially if your name is Madame Curie.
Not the same thing.
I think Joel Duff has a really good video on the history of like soft tissue in these fossils. That's really fascinating, and that we've actually known or like had indications of soft tissue in these fossils long before Mary Schweitzer came along, and that these things have been discussed since like the 60s and 70s. So yeah. I think this is like clearly the kind of thing that journalists would like to hype up. And then creationists always fall for hype because they don't know how to discern real science from hype. But yeah, I if you haven't seen it, definitely check out Joel Duff's sort of history of this. He's got like the whole hemoglobin challenge, right? That people should definitely.
By the way, Randy should know that the first reports of possible collagen were older than Dr. Schweitzer's discovery, because the paper his own guy wrote about this that he's going to reference later includes a little summary of the history of the discovery of soft tissue in dinosaur bones, and the earliest report that they have in their own paper that Randy is about to cite is 1966.
Yeah. All right, let us continue. Otherwise, we're never going to finish this.
Understands you're not going to get blood cells, blood vessels, and these things lasting for 65 million years inside these vessels. Not only that, she found what looked like collagen. Well, now the response to this in the conventional community has been that, well, you're not really finding these soft tissues. You're finding biofilm. You're not really finding collagen. In fact, collagen.
The response. It was a response among many, because you know what happens when you make a new discovery in science? You get pushback, and that's good. You should get pushback, because most people who think they've discovered something new are wrong.
It's true. All right, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit just to the punchline here with the paper that Dapper has alluded to a couple of times. So here we go.
Really there. Well, the paper was just published in what people would call a conventional peer-reviewed scientific journal, Analytical
Just
Chemistry.
Get rid of the word conventional,
and this
and
paper was
changes
just published. Look, January 17th, 2025. Mm-hmm. And this paper demonstrates pretty clearly that this is actual collagen material in this Edmontosaurus bone. And what's also interesting is, if you look over on the authors of this paper, boom.
So the paper does document the find of collagen, but the point of the paper is not the finding of collagen. It's an attempt to rule out exogenous collagen as the source, and to instead find a way to confirm that the collagen being found is endogenous, which that might be a bunch of big words people don't understand. So exogenous collagen would be collagen that is not from the animal in question. So this was done on an Edmontosaurus, and if you had exogenous collagen, that would mean some other animal had dug down to the bone or done something with the bone, and that collagen got in there, and now that's what you're finding. Endogenous means that it's actually original to the thing in question. So this would be the Edmontosaurus made its own collagen, and now that's what you're finding. But further, I want to point out they didn't actually find collagen. Nothing in that paper actually indicates intact collagen. What they found were 6 different collagen-derived peptides in measurable quantities using more than one different technique. That's it. They did not actually find intact collagen, because when Randy says that collagen can't survive 65 million years, he's right.
He's right.
And that's not what they found.
And he keeps saying collagen material instead of collagen.
Right.
because he knows he can't say collagen because it's not actually the protein collagen, it's the degeneration products of that protein.
Oh, and also the paper, you'll notice it's in analytical chemistry, not in like some kind of journal that normally publishes paleontology. I can't prove it, but I suspect the reason for that is because they give away in there that the authors do not think that birds are dinosaurs. Because when they talk about their controls, they used like a Bos taurus, which is just like domesticated cattle. I think it was a femur, but I would have to double check. I don't remember exactly. But they also used the pelvis of a turkey, Meleagris gallopava, which they sourced from a butcher. Okay, whatever. That's a fine place to source a turkey pelvis. But the reason that they say they're using a turkey is because, according to them, it is generally considered to be part of the Archosauria.
Yeah, generally considered.
Yeah, which means they don't feel like that's a firm conclusion. And so I suspect they didn't want to say something that they thought was untrue, which to some degree, I mean, good on having that integrity that you don't want to directly lie in your paper. Okay, I get that. But what that also means then is that you can't actually give a very good reason for the turkey without lying if you publish it in a paleontology journal. Because anyone who is peer reviewing a paleontology paper, who's actually a paleontologist, who's like generally considered to be a part of the Archosauria, well, that's a red flag.
Yep.
I mean, the people that reviewed this were not paleontologists or
it's a chemistry.
They would have been chemists, and they wouldn't have known probably what those words would have meant in the first place.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, I'm not a chemist, but from looking through the paper, I don't see any gigantic red flags in terms of their methods or anything like that. Like, all of it sounds like, yeah, you use some tests that can be used to test for collagen, and according to you, this is the first time that these specific tests have been done, and the way that you did it with the preparation of the bone and whatnot, you say is excluding the possibility of endogenous collagen material, which, like, okay, yeah, sure, great. But the problem is that, so we have a lot of proposed mechanisms for preservation of, like, various protein remnants in fossils. One of the biggest ones is iron cross-linking, something which is never discussed anywhere in the paper, nor from what I could find is any other proposed mechanism of preservation. Which means,
well, duh,
that all that's happened in this paper is that some creationists think they found a way to tell whether or not the collagen remnants that you're finding are from the dinosaur or not. But finding collagen remnants in a dinosaur isn't news. This isn't doing anything to advance creationism per se. It might be advancing one aspect of paleontology if we take the paper at face value, which for this purpose I'm perfectly happy to do. Yeah, but that doesn't do a damn thing to help young Earth creationism. It doesn't refute the geological timeline. It doesn't refute common ancestry. It doesn't refute natural selection. It doesn't do any of these things, which, by the way, is how it gets published, because creationists will say, well, creationists do publish in real peer-reviewed journals. Look at these. But when they publish, those papers never actually have anything to do with demonstrating the distinctive claims of creationism. And that's the difference. Creationism never gets published. Creationists do. And that's a big difference.
That's a useful thing to point out. Thank you. We do have a super chat that came in a little bit ago. Lieutenant Matt, the Moose Broker for $2. The Yek Cutting Edge badly needs a whetstone.
That's really good. I like that.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's getting a little dull. All right. So I jumped a little bit ahead here. We're going to wrap up this little bit on soft tissue. And then we're going to do, you're all going to love it, folks. We're going to do human-chimp similarity.
Ooh, fun.
And that's like a long section, and we're not going to do the whole, like, 6.5 minutes of it. We're going to jump a little bit because we don't need to hear all of it, but we are going to see some of it. So let's just finish this out real quick, then we'll do that.
That they find actual soft tissue still there. Some of these have blood vessels, some of them have blood cells, and a definitive paper was just published which shows actual collagen in these bones.
Nope,
and did you know that there's not a demonstrable method which can keep them around for 65 million years?
Also wrong.
How old must these bones be? That is a good question. That's a good question.
Real quick, when he says there's no demonstrable reason, what he means is that no one has sat around for 66 million years to watch. It doesn't mean that we don't have empirical evidence of plausible preservation mechanisms that, as far as we can tell, can be extrapolated to that timeline, because we do.
Yeah.
We absolutely do. Iron cross-linking, which I just mentioned, is one of the biggest ones, right? And also, I want to point out, this Edmontosaurus was found in the same formation as the T-Rex femur that Dr. Schweitzer was working on, which means that chances are that it's the exact same preservation mechanism. Do I know that? No, because you know what the creationists who wrote this paper didn't talk about a single time? Any potential preservation mechanisms. Because they don't want there to be.
Because they don't want to.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to exist. Yep. All right. Here we go. So for this little bit, we're just about at the end of this little piece here. For this next one, I'm going to let it go for a little bit because, well, you'll see. But we're going to go to about 1308, and you'll see.
Have an answer to that. Wow.
Oh, wait, sorry. I lied. First, I just want to point out that they messed up the title on this slide, and they left the research on soft. They left the soft in there, right, before going to the alleged genetic similarity. I just thought that was funny. Proofread your slides. Have someone else look them over.
It's almost as fun as that time that THOT appeared as a word in one of the Kenthoven slides. Huh. He meant THOUGHT, but he just put THOT, and that was what was in there. And I was like, oh, no.
Oh, God. Okay. Okay.
Those are two biggie projects. Third, chimps and humans are claimed to be genetic cousins because we're claimed to have really, really high genetic similarity, anywhere between 98 and 99% genetically similar. And I have to say, if that were true, then that would be a pretty good argument for common ancestry.
Okay, let's just put a pin in that one and just put that in, keep that in your folder for future use. Just that little bit right there. Just hold that.
And it's persuasive to a lot of people in colleges and universities. And they'll hear it everywhere. In fact, just a few years ago, The Conversation had an article which was titled this, Bang, How to Slam Dunk a Creationist When It Comes to the Theory of Evolution. And they gave all kinds of reasons.
That's like 8 years ago.
I know, it's not a few years ago, but whatever. I know. This part is really good, folks. Just wait till you see what he quotes as the problematic statement here. Just wait.
On how to slam dunk us. And reason number one was this. It's printed really small, so I'll blow it up. Boom. Humans share 99% of their genes with chimps, our closest relatives.
Hold on, pause it. I want everyone
This is true. This is literally true.
Focus on the word genes.
Yeah.
Right? The word genes is important there because nothing that Jeffrey Tompkins has done has in any way changed this. Because remember, this isn't even just reporting that 99% of this coding sequences are the same.
Genes.
It's just counting up the genes. Hey, out of these 100 genes for different proteins, how many of them are shared across humans and chimpanzees? And the answer is, out of every 100 genes that you find in the human genome, 99% of them are also going to be a gene that exists in the chimpanzee. Are they different? Do they have different sequences? Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
But are they producing the same basic protein? And the answer is
yes.
It's
the same gene. It's the same gene in the same place in the genome.
Right.
Over 99% of the time. Yes.
Nothing.
Yes.
Nothing at all that Jeffrey Tompkins has done has even assessed that question as to whether or not that is an accurate count. He hasn't even tried to address it.
Go ahead.
I just want to take maybe a bigger step back here. I have found this entire saga just really wild because evolution says that we are all related. All living things are related. We don't sit here and debate about how what's the genetic similarity of us and bananas, or we don't debate the genetic similarity of us and bacteria. All living things are cousins. And why are we just fighting about how close the closest cousin is? I just don't understand it from I don't know, the meta argument is if it's 98 or 90 or 80, the point is that we are all cousins, right?
Right, but Randy gave away the reason why he thinks that this is something to talk about. It's because it's persuasive. Fundamentally, it's not actually about how much this helps in terms of the evidence of common ancestry. Because we all know that the evidence of common ancestry for all life on Earth does not rest on a particular number for the similarity of chimps and humans in some measurement of genetic similarity. It's the entire pattern of genetics, morphology, the fossil record, all of that stuff, right? But it's persuasive. This particular fact is getting people who are otherwise sympathetic to young Earth creationism, who are going to college and taking biology courses, to say, oh, okay, hold on. Well, that does seem like that would indicate common ancestry between humans and chimps. So Randy doesn't give a single fuck about convincing you, Zach B. Hancock, that evolution isn't true.
Hey, I just
You're
want to
not the
say
target
I had our F-bomb in reserve for a part that's coming up in a little bit. So I'm just going to reserve the right to the next one.
Okay.
Just want to put that out
I'll try
there.
not to say it again. But that's the thing.
Steal it.
It's persuasive to college kids. That's who he's concerned about, because a large portion of his, the evangelicals in the room have kids or grandkids who are going to go off to college, and they're going to learn science. And they're going to abandon, at the very least, the pseudoscience that they were taught. And because of people like Randy, who taught them that this was a key aspect of their religion, a large subset of that group are also going to abandon Christianity. And that's what he cares about. He doesn't care about Zach B. Hancock believing him, because he knows you're never going to.
No, but the point is that I also teach college students, right? And the way that I teach evolution is not by telling them, by the way, evolution is true because you are 99% related. Like, the whole narrative is wrong. Like that's, I guess, what kind of rubs me the wrong way, is the presentation is just like fundamentally, it's just made up. It's just fiction. That's not the way we teach evolution.
Zach, are you telling me that creationists don't accurately represent what goes on in college biology classrooms?
I fear that I might be saying that. If I'm saying the sky is blue. I get
this is my shocked face. I can't believe it that they would misrepresent what happens in class when we teach evolution.
Also, to some extent, this comes out of a poll that was done a while ago now, in which people who were in college who had abandoned Christianity and who had been regular churchgoers, as earlier in their lives, were polled about why they left Christianity. And I believe it was the most common, although not the majority answer, was the evidence for human-chimp common ancestry.
I have a couple chats I want to highlight here. A couple chats I want to highlight before we move on. First, two from Prixie Overthrow Dapitalism Purple, talking about this similarity stuff and how everything is connected, except maybe viruses. If you call those alive, I just like to point that out. I do too, because viruses, unlike cellular life, are polyphyletic. So all cellular life is monophyletic. Viruses are not. And then that leads to Prixie's second comment here. Some viruses are maybe not related to other living things. I would say definitely not related to other, let's say, cellular or viral living things. So we know what that looks like. Exactly. We know what monophyly for a large group of living things looks like, and we know what polyphyly for a large group of living things looks like. Viruses are polyphyletic. Cells don't look like viruses. They look different. They're monophyletic.
You're just assuming starting conditions?
I'm going to reach through the screen and punch that dinosaur in the face.
We know what it would look like if there were multiple original lineages, right? I mean, that's effectively what viruses are, is that it would appear as if a virus emerged almost de novo, like from not a virus many times.
If you try to do phylogenetics with viruses above class or order, it breaks down. You literally can't do it, because each, depending on the level you assign, class or order of viruses is in actuality independent of all the other ones, right? Yeah. So when you try to connect the internal branches to assign common ancestry to those groups that don't actually share it, it's chaos. Phylogenetically, you can't resolve it. You don't actually generate phylogenies. So what we're all joking about here is this ongoing discussion that has to do with common ancestry versus separate ancestry and what that looks like phylogenetically. And you can't just set the starting states to make it artificially look like there's common ancestry if there isn't actually common ancestry, because you can't fake those internal branches of the tree. It doesn't look the same if you start at a certain level and then just kind of pretend from there. It doesn't work. And viruses show us what it looks like when you have these separate ancestral points, and it doesn't look like what cellular life looks like. Viruses are great because they show us what separate ancestry looks like. It's a really cool test case.
Yeah, it does. And they also tell us a lot about our own genomes and about how genomes themselves evolve. Like a lot of viruses are related to like transposable and like retro elements within your genome, right? Like your introns were probably originally a viral type element, a sort of transposable element. Retrotransposons are like the base of a great many viral families. So it's really fascinating to think about this sort of how viruses can have emerged from within cellular life, or if
Right.
it emerged like from like outside of cellular life and
Yeah.
invaded it, right? It's
Because
like it's this really interesting problem.
this is my lab in grad school was virus evolution. So like I could spend, you don't even want to know how many hours talking about this, but there are groups of viruses that I think are descended from cells. There's a group of viruses called the NCLDVs, the nucleocytoplasmic large DNA viruses, that I think it's persuasive that those are basically like a fourth domain where they are descended from the same common ancestor as the 3 cellular domains. But then there's other groups of viruses that are definitely not that. And for example, there's a group of viruses that is the result of horizontal gene transfer between plasmids, and then a completely unrelated group of viruses. They stole the capsid gene. So now you've got a new virus group that just appeared seemingly out of nowhere. There's a bunch of different examples that are similar to that. And there's also viruses that probably go back to about the same time that cellular life originated. And I just want to highlight this comment from Cognitive Trifurcation. I was under the impression a big reason why we can't resolve viral phylogenies is due to HDT. Is there more to the story? There is so much more to the story. There's lots of horizontal gene transfer, but also multiple de novo origins for different groups of viruses. It's chaos, and that's why I love it. And we also have a super chat that I want to highlight here from A.L. Loam for $10. Thank you. That was very generous of you. Coming in late, this has been on my mind. Grant, everything is true about the global flood, and every single non-water plant would be eradicated, thus no flood, no wood wide web, no environment. Yeah, the flood would kill everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
The flood would kill everything, basically, and yes, that's
also
exactly
remember,
right.
You have to ignore the heat problem in order to get to the point where you could even have plants in order for them to not survive, basically, because remember,
Plasma.
The actual flood models, they result in the Earth not having chemistry anymore because it got too hot, right? Yeah. Like as temperature goes up, first you get like it's too cold for most chemistry. Then chemistry starts up. Then you get a little warmer, and biology can start happening, while chemistry also continues on. But then eventually you get to the point where biology can't really happen anymore. We're back to just chemistry. But then eventually, when things get hot enough, chemistry stops because the electrons get stripped away from the nuclei. And if you know anything about chemistry, you know that it's the interaction of the electrons that is what chemistry is. Once you're at plasma, you no longer have chemistry happening. And every flood model that is seriously proposed by ICR or AIG or CMI involves so much heat release that you are making the Earth into a ball of plasma and exceeding the gravitational binding energy of the Earth, which means that it's more like a Death Star attack than it is like everything's wet.
It's bad. All right, I just skipped a little bit that in my notes is not super relevant, but as you can see on screen, folks, we are, in fact, those of you who guessed it, we're talking about Jeffrey Tompkins here and all of the wrong he did with the human-chimp similarity. And if you want the hours-long version of that, I refer you to our friend Erica Gutzik-Gibbon. She has covered it all at great length. You should all check it out.
Hours and hours and hours of length.
So many hours. Okay. But let's pick it up from there, and we'll go from there.
Oh, we have a super chat.
Oh, we do. Do we have another super chat? Thank you. Here we go. From Lieutenant Matt the Moose Broker for $5. Remember, kids, use a preventative if you don't want unwanted horizontal gene transfer, and also unwanted vertical gene transfer as well. Just use
vertical.
Just use an effective way to prevent that, please.
I did hear one of those manosphere people saying that actually there is a bunch of horizontal gene transfer from every partner that someone has had. And like, boy, is that wrong.
Wow. I didn't need to. Okay.
The manosphere, everybody. It's at least as dumb as young Earth creationism.
It's both. I would argue it's dumber because, see, at least for creationism, they're talking about some like esoteric sciencey sounding thing. And for the manosphere, it's just like people, how they interact. And
so you're saying my beard isn't going to fall out if I eat too many phytoestrogens?
Like I said, it's dumber than creationism. It's dumber than creationism.
As you can tell, I'm a connoisseur of dumb shit.
Oh man, aren't we all? All right, here we go.
That. But what is the actual similarity?
All right, I'm sorry. Can we just appreciate on screen that he's showing the paper that used the bug version of BLAST?
Yes, yeah, where it was down to 70.
Yeah.
And also, another thing I want to point out is when he says, what is the actual similarity? And he's doing this Jeffrey Tompkins is not doing what that article was.
Nope.
That article was talking about how many genes are in common. Jeffrey Tompkins was failing, but attempting to do a whole genome comparison at a mutation by mutation level. That is not at all the same thing. And the fact that he is getting a different number should be expected just on the face of it, because it's not the same comparison, right? It's just like if I said, okay, how much shorter or taller is Dan than me? And then you come in and you say, okay, well, they might only differ in height by 7%, but their mass difference is some other number. Who cares? That doesn't make the height comparison wrong.
Well, you're a reptile. You're a reptile, and I'm a mammal, so I have infinitely more hair than you.
Right. It's just like you're not comparing the same thing, and pretending that you are can either only be profound ignorance of just very basic level genetics. We're talking like high school level genetics, or it's just lies. And the thing with Randy is Randy doesn't have any background in genetics, so I can't rule out that he's just incredibly dumb. But Jeffrey Tompkins is lying to you.
Tompkins is lying. And with that, let's continue.
Well, this also takes a lot of research, because in order to do it, you have to look at all of the chromosomes, and you have to look at large segments of DNA. And
I'm going to just skip ahead a little bit, because we don't need to hear about Tompkins, because again, Tompkins was like wrong in every way. Which is Tompkins bad.
Did he say chromosome with an N?
I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
All right, let's pop up to about here. Let's see.
Similarity was down around 80%, maybe 80 to 85%, and this has not been refuted. Has not been refuted. There hasn't been a paper that's come out.
Okay, when he says there hasn't been a paper that's come out that's refuted Tompkins, on the one hand, it's kind of true, right? Because as far as I know, no one has published an actual paper in an actual peer-reviewed journal responding to Tompkins, but that's primarily because Tompkins hasn't published any of this in any peer-reviewed articles in the first place. So, like, it's kind of like asking, like, hey, why isn't there a peer-reviewed paper in a geology journal refuting Roger from Mud Fossil University, who thinks that the entire west coast of the United States and just North America is a giant scorpion?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, why would there be?
Yeah,
why does anyone feel the need?
Randy does specifically say in here how both the Journal of Creation and the Answers Research Journal are peer-reviewed journals.
No, they're not.
And no, they're not.
No. They're peer-reviewed in the sense that
well, they're reviewed by the peers and the creationists.
Right. they're not peer-reviewed in the sense of like rigorous analysis of the claims, which are then sent back when they're found to be incorrect or there are methodological flaws or anything. Right. That doesn't happen. And one of the ways you can tell is because papers that are at least as rigorous as the papers that are published there aren't published there if they contradict young Earth creationism. And we have concrete examples of such papers failing to be published. And I'm not talking like given notes for revision. I'm just talking about ghosting people for years and then saying, I don't need to give you a reason not to publish this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of not publishing
that happens.
About. Yeah.
Yep. All right. This is the part. This part. Just I'm gonna let this play for about a minute and just let it ride, and then we can complain about it. Trust me.
Okay. I'll shut up.
That has refuted this. And in fact, the situation has gotten worse. And it hasn't even gotten worse by research at ICR. In 2023, late 2023, major sections, in fact, whole chromosomes were compared at the end of 2023. And Dr. Tompkins reported on this last year, where it was a full sequence Y chromosome. Now, about half the people in this room have a Y chromosome, and that is the male chromosome.
Definitely said chromosome.
So males have the regular complement, and then we have an X and we have a Y chromosome. Under the influence of that Y chromosome during development, you will develop into a male. If you have an X and an X, you are a female, and under development, you will develop into a female. By the way, there's only two sexes.
I know where this is going.
I mean, well, okay. I don't know. Are you cheering because I said two or I said sex?
Hang on.
Anyway, so there's only two on that. And
Okay, so like I said, I wanted to reserve my right to this. Just make sure, fuck that guy and anybody else in that room.
Yeah.
Like it's
So
nothing else was clearer than that he's in a church right now, right? Than that moment.
Yeah.
It's like these people have been sitting in this audience sleeping. Like they are snoozing.
Right.
They are bored out of their freaking minds. And then he says there's only two sexes, and suddenly like, well, he said it. He said it. He said it. Like,
Yeah.
like that's the only thing they've cared about.
Yeah, that was say the words, Randy.
I want to use a little analogy just to point out why this is a very stupid thing to talk about for Randy, right? So if by sexes, you want to say that, like, well, sexual characteristics in humans are bimodally distinguished, right? Like when we measure them out, they come out with a bimodal distribution, which means that there are two peaks for the frequency of the character states of the things to do with sex in humans. That's true. There are two modes there. And if you want to say that what I mean by sex is just the modes that occur in the statistical information that you get when you measure these characteristics, then that's a fair thing to say. But what Randy will then go on to say is that if you don't fall neatly into one of those modes, you don't count, basically. Everyone has to be in one of those modes. And it's kind of like saying there are two hills in your town, and you have to be on one. And if you think you're in a house that's in the middle between those in the little trough, no, you're not. But yes, you might be. And being there is a perfectly fine place to be, and that's okay. And it's not, like, wrong. You didn't do anything bad by living there. And it's the same thing. If you happen to be intersex, that doesn't make you invalid. And I'm not even sure if Randy, when presented with an intersex person, would say that they're not invalid. But I think what he would say is they actually do belong to one of those modes. But that doesn't make any sense because they measurably don't. So that's just dumb. And so if all you mean by there are two sexes is there are two modes when measuring these characteristics, fine. That's an accurate statement. But we know that's not what he means. And that's the part that pisses me off about it.
All he means is we're all on the same side and we all hate intersex and non-binary and trans people. That's it.
Yeah,
that's all he means. He's not making any statistical point. They're just assholes.
Yeah, he's also just going to be conflating sex and gender in this because intersex and transgender, not the same thing. Also, what actually ends up making you male, generally speaking, under most conditions, is the SRY gene, which is usually on the Y chromosome. But there are cases where it is translocated to an X chromosome, and there are XX males.
Yep.
Also, XXX is a thing. X0 is a thing. Those are also chromosomal categories that humans fall into. And in those cases, those people are in fact generally intersex. Not so much for XXX, but whatever.
There's going to be, there's a broad spectrum, and it's also based on how much of the chromosome is translocated or absent, and downstream. What about the receptor? Like, you could have mutations on other chromosomes that affect hormone biosynthesis or the receptors for the hormones, and then that's a whole other thing that's separate from the X and the Y chromosomes because those genes are throughout the genome. Also, can we just appreciate the graphic that's on screen right now, where apparently ICR, I don't know what year this article is from that's on screen, if it's, could potentially be like an AI thing or not. The Y chromosome is not shaped like a Y, in contrast to all the other chromosomes where they have the two chromatids that look vaguely like an X. Okay, it doesn't look like, it's just smaller, but it's not shaped like. Do
you mean to tell me the ZW in birds isn't shaped like a Z?
It's not.
Is that what you're telling me right now?
All right, so this is
gosh.
This article was published January 4th, 2024. I actually I did find it. It looks like the current version of the article doesn't actually have that image, but the cached version that you'll find on search engines do still show it as an image associated with that. And I'm currently looking at it, and I don't think it's AI. I think it's actually like a 3D thing. And the reason I say that is because every single X chromosome has exactly the same shape. They're only different by rotation.
Okay.
Which means that this was a deliberate choice.
Someone did that on purpose.
Yeah, someone did that. They decided to make the Y chromosome look like a Y.
That's so much worse than having an AI image generator and just putting in Y chromosome and it's spitting out a Y-shaped chromosome.
Yeah,
It's so much worse. It was a deliberate choice.
Yeah, in fact, if you asked me to make this image, I know exactly how I would do it, and it's not by asking AI. And yeah, this would have to be a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got a super chat for $2 from Meat Permits Tad for with a pride flag and a trans pride flag, and thank you for that. Yes, wholeheartedly.
Agreed.
Screw these assholes. All right. I am going to jump. Where are we? We're at 16. So we don't need to hear about more. He doesn't understand the human-chimp stuff. He gets it all wrong. Let's go to the chromosome 2 fusion.
Oh, I have bad news. That picture was not produced by ICR. I'm finding it in other articles unassociated with them from earlier.
Oh no.
So this was not a bad decision by ICR. They just used it, and other people have already made this horrible graphic. In fact, you can find less cropped versions of it, and also different color palettes of it. I think this is a stock image that they found, and so whoever made this stock image, which is what it looks like it is, screw yourself.
It's rough. Okay.
Actually, oh my god, there are other versions of it that are using the same 3D models from different perspectives. Oh no, this is someone is churning these out. Someone is producing multiple versions of this image, and I
shame on that person.
All
right, let's keep going. We actually have less left than you think because a lot of the tail end of this video is pointless. So let's do a little bit chromosome 2 fusion, and there's only 3.5 minutes of this, so we can bang this part out fast. It's bad.
They would say it goes back to the mere fact that chimps have 24 pairs of chromosomes and humans only have 23 pairs of chromosomes. How do you have a common ancestor if you don't even have the same number of chromosomes?
Hey, pause for a second.
They would assert that...
Hey, Randy, you generally agree with family-level common ancestry. Did you know that pinnipeds and suids and ursids and equids, that's the seals and walruses, that's the horses, the bears, the pigs, they all have varying numbers of chromosomes within that family. So unless you want to go with separate family or species level or maybe genus level separate ancestry, generally speaking, you don't get to use this as a barrier for common ancestry. In fact, also, I think cervids, deer, they differ in their chromosome count by an order of magnitude across species. There are cervids fewer than 10 and more than 30 chromosomes out there. And cervids are deer.
There are sister species where one species has 8 very large chromosomes and the sister species has over 40 very small chromosomes.
Yeah. So also, if you go into birds, so birds do this thing where they have microchromosomes, where they have very, very small chromosomes. And they usually have some bigger ones too. But the number of chromosomes, because they have these multiple tiny little chromosomes, can vary by huge amounts across different bird species that are very closely related. So even if Randy wants to dispute, even if Randy is correct that we have no evidence for this chromosome fusion, the bare fact of chromosome differences cannot be a barrier to common ancestry unless Randy wants to radically change what he thinks about common ancestry.
Does Randy know that there are humans with different numbers of chromosomes? That's a good question.
I think he would say, I think what he would do is he would point to Down syndrome as his only example and then say, yeah, but that's a disease and that's because of the fall, so it doesn't count. And then just move on.
And
I think that's what he would do.
All right. Let's continue.
That just makes it okay.
Let's continue. Where are we here?
Sometime in the past, a chromosome which they would label 2A.
All right, I just want to skip ahead a little bit here. Here we go.
And then you have another part called a centromere, which is depicted by that little V-shaped structure. Centromeres are really, really important for aligning chromosomes during cell division and duplication of the DNA. So if Human-chimp 2 fused with together, 2A and 2B fused together to make 2.
What's up, Zach?
I was just there. It's really about the kinetochore connections more so than the alignment. The alignment is based on sequence identity and homology, not by the centromere. It doesn't. I'm just muttering under my breath.
Are you expecting Randy Guliuzza to understand the subtleties of synapses during meiosis or something.
Well, so it's kind of important when we're thinking about fusions and fissions of chromosomes, right? Because if the centromere is the only thing, but it's actually about homology, then you can actually fuse and like break apart chromosomes, and they can still align, right? Like that's
what you're doing is you're letting the data get in the way of Randy's rhetoric, and that's something Randy would never allow.
That's like rule number 1 of Creationist Club. Don't worry about the data. Just go.
The rhetoric is all that matters. The data only matter to the level that they help your rhetoric. The minute they don't positively help your rhetoric, you either lie about them or you ignore them. That's it. Those are the only options.
Here we go.
You would expect to find some structures. You would expect to find a fusion site, and you would expect to find a cryptic centromere because the chromosome only has one.
So I'm going to save time with this and just say we find those things and he lies about it. I'm just going to spoil it for everybody. We don't have to watch the 2 minutes of him doing that. We find that stuff is there. You can look at the sequences. It's there.
There's one point he makes that I want to talk
We're going to get to the gene part. Don't worry.
Well, it's not that. I want to talk about
something
that he says about the centromeres. So one of the things he says in order to dismiss the idea that the cryptic centromere is in fact a cryptic centromere is to point out that it's very short compared to other centromeres. To which my one response is, gee, so some part of the DNA that's not actually under any selection or useful to the organism at all might have had deletions over the course of evolutionary history? Wow. If only anyone had ever thought about that. Yeah, of course it does. That's what a bunch of DNA that's not doing anything tends to do. It mutates a lot. And one of those kinds of mutations are deletions. And if there's a deletion in a part of junk DNA, there's no reason for it not to persist. We would expect the centromere that's not active to degrade in some way. And shortening is one of the ways in which non-functional reasons of DNA can degrade over evolutionary time. It's not surprising, Randy.
It's it's in fact just from a population genetic perspective, it's what you would expect to happen because it's selectively favorable because you're saving on metabolic costs by reducing the metabolic load of maintaining junk in effect. So it's not like there's a strong selective pressure here, but if the mutation does occur, it does provide a slight metabolic advantage to that cell. So
Oh, hey, Bread of Life is in the chat. Hi, Bread of Life.
Hello, Rebecca. Okay, let's do this for another minute and change, and we'll talk about the gene at the fusion site.
Not chimp. Here's really probably the nail in the coffin.
He just reminded me of something.
Go.
He also said the sequence isn't chimp. Randy, the hypothesis is not that humans evolved from modern chimpanzees. It's that chimpanzees and humans share a common ancestor. So you wouldn't expect to find characteristic chimpanzee sequences anywhere in the human genome.
No, Dapper. The derived state is the human genome, and the ancestral state is the chimpanzee genome, and that's just how it is.
You were going to reach through the screen and punch me?
I
do you remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, also, I just want to point out...
Your arms are too short.
That's true. I can bite, though.
Just try. You can't reach.
I'll bite. I have a very sharp teeth. Here's the thing, right? Generally speaking, chimps are actually more derived than humans at a molecular and in many cases even a morphological level. Yeah. So when people say humans and chimpanzees evolved from a chimp-like ancestor, it's actually more accurate to say that they evolved from a human-like ancestor.
Yeah. Which aside, we don't have time, but that also has implications for the waiting time problem. We don't have time. We do not have time. We're not going to do it.
I won't touch it.
But that is also part of the deal. So let's talk about this briefly. Let's just do it, Randy.
When Dr. Tompkins checked the fusion site of the supposed alleged fusion that happened in the past, it is not an end-to-end portion of DNA that you might expect, capping DNA. What he found in the actual fusion site was a gene, not just an old dead gene, but a gene that is actively transcribed today, and you use the product.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Also, I want to highlight something Bread of Life said.
What should I highlight?
I think it's her most recent chat.
It's frustrating, that one?
Yeah.
There you go. It's frustrating that they insist on this gender binary in the most unloving way.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%. And that is, Rebecca, I really, really wish that you could get your position on this to just get spread through all of evangelical or just Christianity generally.
Just
Because
everybody.
the current attitude that is largely ubiquitous in a lot of Christian groups, it's not just dumb and hateful, it's directly harmful. People die because of the position on gender that Randy Guliuzza has. And so I just want to say thank you for not doing that and for trying to spread the ability to love people and meet them where they are and to not condemn them because they don't conform to the gender ideas that you think people should have from some kind of tradition. And I'm not saying you specifically, Bread of Life. I mean just people in general. That was So thank you very much. I just want to appreciate that because we don't get a lot of Christian voices saying that here or anywhere, to be fair. And you're one of them, and I really value that. I value that far higher than any amount of you agreeing with me on science. If I could change whether or not Christians broadly accepted science or broadly stopped causing the death of trans people, it would be the stop causing the deaths of trans people one. But I have even less chance of that. So you might have a bigger chance. So keep going.
I co-sign all of that.
Thank you.
I also, while we're here, I want to go to a super chat, and then Zach, I want to go to you. But first, let me just John Allagood for $10, just joining. So I don't know if anyone mentioned it. We did not, but nice pull. Tirzu often speaks about animal clade specking in a similar nerdy way to dumping, strength, constitution for intelligence. Yes, thank you for all you guys do. You are welcome, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for your super chat. Zach, you had thoughts.
Oh yeah, I've forgotten what they were. Sorry,
it was about the
functional dapper thing just got
gene.
to me. He got to me.
It was about the functional gene that you use the product of the gene at the fusion site.
So I don't actually. So I know that there is like that this is translated, or that this is transcribed.
It's transcribed.
Yeah.
But I didn't even think that this was translated.
It's not. It's not. And in a second, he's going to say it is, but he's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was actually going to ask the panel if we knew if anyone knew whether or not this was actually translated. I mean, to be clear for the audience, like I don't know, some 70% of the human genome gets transcribed. Like at some point in time, it gets transcribed, but that's like that's peanuts. Like it's very, very cheap to like build a bunch of junk mRNA, right? There's junk mRNA floating around in your cell all the time.
We should say what transcribe is, which is when it's turned from DNA to mRNA.
Right. It's yeah. So you've got the DNA, and then you get a polymerase, a little molecule that comes down, sits on it, and it basically reads it into another molecule that we call mRNA, and that's the transcript. It's basically like transcribed what the DNA says, right? And that happens all the time, just spuriously because of biochemistry, right? Like you've got a bunch of molecules in an aqueous solution bumping around. They do stuff, right? And it's actually really cheap to do that. And our like eukaryotic cells have a really high energy budget. They have a really high metabolic budget to do this sort of thing. What's a lot more expensive, however, is to actually translate it, to actually take it and then turn it into a polypeptide is not a cheap process, right? You're actually like having to use stuff. Now, that's not to say that there's not junk proteins, because there are junk proteins, because again, ribosomes aren't thinking things, right? They don't know what they're doing. So if an mRNA gets to them, it will just translate them, right? It doesn't know what it's doing. But it is a lot more wasteful, and so the cell will tend to that will tend to not happen as often. And so for him to say that, that these things get translated, well, transcribed is like actually not all that interesting at all. I thought that he was saying that it actually gets translated.
He does say that in a minute, and to my knowledge, that is wrong.
I would say he doesn't say that, but he does something worse. But also, I have one quick question for Zach, which is, where in this process of creating mRNA does the Bill Gates microchip get inserted?
That's actually right at the injection site.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got it. Sorry, Dan. I'm here to make you suffer. You invited me on. You knew.
I know. This is
fun. So I'm teaching non-majors this semester, and I'm really excited about it. And our big point of like what we're trying to do is make like educated, politically aware non-science majors, like to like really be able to do like approach a biological problem without being biology majors. And our first lecture, we're talking about vaccines. Like we're going in and we're like, look, guys, we want you to be able to understand this stuff because one of these days you're gonna go to business school, you're gonna get a business degree, great and wonderful, but you're then going to vote on stuff that matters. And so I need you to be educated
Like
in this stuff.
just understand the basics of how stuff works. Yeah.
Please. So that's what we're trying to get across in this class.
If a worm brain guy says it, you should think double about that in terms of science. You should really think about that.
Okay. I'm gonna let this play for like 50-ish seconds, and that'll wrap up this
that's enough time for me to grab another drink.
Bit. Go for it. As long as you can still hear, we're good.
So how do you get two chromosomes that fuse together and it actually forms an active transcribed gene today?
Okay, that's what I meant, right? He doesn't know the difference between transcription and translation.
I think he says it more specifically in a minute, though.
Okay, but keep in mind, maybe I'm wrong, because I'm going to grab a drink, so I won't be able to say things. But I don't think he makes a distinction between transcription and translation. And if I'm right about that, then you owe me 3 internets, Dan.
Okay, fair enough. I will send you 3 internets via carrier pigeon. Let's see what happens.
That's really hard to explain. So you could say to your friends when they say that these 2 chromosomes fuse together, you can't remember any of the other things, you could say, did you know that at the site where they allege that these 2 chromosomes fuse together, there is an actively transcribed gene? Transcribed means it's transcribed into RNA, which is then translated into protein. Did you know that? How do you explain that from a fusion site? That's a really good question. And they won't have an answer to that.
I think he doesn't know that there is like transcription without translation. I suspect he might not even know that that's a thing.
Maybe he doesn't.
So like he might just assume that, oh, they found evidence of transcription. That must mean that it's a functional product because he doesn't know that transcription happens all the time for no purpose.
Okay. That is a fair hypothesis, Zach. He may just not know that you don't have to do the whole process. You can just stop after the first part. Okay. That's fair. Also, just to be clear, everybody, not only is he wrong about like it's not an active gene, it's a pseudogene. It's the DDX11L2 pseudogene. All the other, this is a member of the DDX whatever family of pseudogenes. All the rest of them are found in the immediate vicinity of telomeres, except for this one, which is in the middle of chromosome 2, next to the degenerate telomere from the fusion site, which seems like an odd coincidence. And it is, again, it's a pseudogene. It's not an actual protein encoding gene. It's, to my knowledge, not translated, although it is transcribed. And here's a really fun thing. If you look at the most recent build of the human genome, it looks like there isn't the alternative start site on the far side of the fusion. So there's a bunch of parts of that gene on one side of the fusion site, and then there's an alternate transcription start site across the telomere on the opposite side, so it reads through the head-to-head telomere fusion site if the whole thing is transcribed according to the one possible start site. In the latest build, that alternate start is gone, and the entire thing is on one side of the fusion site. And I will be having Mike from Answers in Atheism, and if you know him from back in the day, Speed of Sound of Gravity, he will be here next week, and we're going to talk about that because he's been doing a deep dive into this, looking at like the latest human genome sequence builds and what that site looks like and where the different components are and how large they are and how you can tell what's what. So we're going to be talking about this right here next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and that's going to be really cool because Mike knows way more about all that stuff than I do, and I'm really excited to learn about it. But I did gather from him in our recent conversations on this that in the latest version, that reads across the fusion site is actually not there anymore. It's shifted. So Sorry, Randy. Not a thing anymore.
Uh,
Womp womp indeed. Okay. So we are up, friends. We have made it. We're 22 minutes in, and we're up to continuous environmental tracking. Yay!
I knew we could do it. I had faith in us.
I did
I
too.
had faith of the heart, actually.
We made it. So let's just let him. Let's just go. Let's just do it.
And then finally, how in the world do we explain adaptation today?
What the hell
How
is
in the world
Tom
do
doing?
organisms adapt? And this is really the main area where ICR is doing research today. It's explaining how organisms adapt from an engineered basis. And that car on the left, that is a highly
okay. I am not going to do the part with the car. I don't care about car analogies, and I've just, as a personal rule for me, if there's a car analogy, it's like if I'm ever talking to somebody, like this happened recently on, God help me, on one of the creationist Facebook groups, and I was trying to explain something, and someone was like, well, ChatGPT said, and I was just like, I stopped reading as soon as you said that.
Yeah.
I was done. And I do the same thing with car analogies. I stop. Anytime creationists do car stuff, I'm done. So we're going to skip the car analogy. I don't care. And we're going to...
I do want to point one thing about the car analogy, which is that Randy lies about that car.
Okay.
Because of course he does. It doesn't do the things he says it can do. I looked into it. I found out what that car is. And no, it absolutely cannot do the things that Randy says it can.
I just want to appreciate that this is such a great illustration. We did this, folks. We did this many years ago on my channel. There's the I think the original game, and Dapper, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Team Fortress 2 with like the red versus blue, and you could be the heavy weapons guy or the sniper or is that the right thing?
I mean, that Team Fortress 2 is an example of such a game.
But we did a it was like peer fortress or whatever. We assigned the way we do, right?
It was Team Fortress 2, yeah.
Yeah, and for those of you who could go back on my channel like however many years and find that, and it was really fun because we all talked about our different styles and dealing with this stuff. And Dapper, I forget if you were like the demolition person or the heavy weapons guy or whatever, but it's like you're the look into every little specific thing, and like there's nothing left but a crater when you're done.
Scorched earth and craters is all the eye can see after I'm done. And also, I just want to point out that Rebecca got my Star Trek reference. And Rebecca, you just jumped up like 5 or 6 notches in my estimation. So much love. I really appreciate that.
That's great. In that same thing, my style was, and again, this was in the thing we were talking about was in the context of peer reviewing, and the style of reviewer was the sniper, and it was you read until the first fatal error, headshot, rejected, next paper. And that's my style of doing this. You can drop a car. I'm not going to look into the car. I'm just going to say car analogies are stupid, and I'm not listening. It's just different stylistically, and I think that's funny. That years later, it still holds.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about actual animals here, I think.
We believe that guinea pig on the right-hand side of the screen was engineered to be adaptable right from the beginning of creation. And like any adaptable thing, it will have to have sensors, it will have to have logic, and it will respond appropriately. So that is describing an experiment which says guinea pigs beat climate change by tweaking their own DNA.
Okay,
now everybody wants to gear in on the...
It's not the title of the article because, once again, Randy is incapable of citing actual articles unless apparently they're written by his own employees. That's all I had there, was just like, hey, Randy, you could cite the real paper, but you don't. But I read the real paper anyway.
Deborah, since you did read the real paper and I did not, I assume by tweaking their own DNA, they're just talking about epigenetic modification of the DNA.
That is exactly what they're talking about.
Imagine that.
Yep. So how did you know?
Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, that is not tweaking your DNA. You're not changing your DNA when you snap a molecule onto it. All you're doing is preventing or promoting expression of whatever genic region that is being bound to. That's not changing your DNA, and it's not even like new or novel. Like Jacques Monod and Francois Jacob won the Nobel Prize for this in the 1960s for discovering it in bacteria. Okay, it's like Like, this is something we've known about for a very, very long time. It's neither adaptation, or it's not adaptation, it's just plasticity. It's just the ability to respond to the environment. Like that's what organisms do. The ability to respond is itself an adaptation, but
The
responding
response
is
is not.
not an adaptation.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's Randy's thing. He has literally no examples that he can point to that fit the definition of adaptation that's used in evolutionary biology that in any way correspond to anything he's talking about with CET. So all he can do is point to things that don't and call them adaptation, even though no one in evolutionary biology would agree with him. That's all he has, because fundamentally, right, we know that there are adaptive changes to DNA that happen within and between species. We know that. We can sequence it. We can tell. Randy does not have a mechanism to get changes to the sequence of DNA that are based on the organism itself sensing its environment. He just doesn't. So instead, all he relies on is a combination of one, epigenetics, and one, epigenetics, two, phenotypic plasticity, three, just sometimes just straight up behavior. Like he'll talk about like insect hawking among dragonflies as if that's some kind of continuous environmental tracking thing that's causing adaptation. Like the ability to predict where a fly is going to be so that a dragonfly can catch it is adaptation, which no, that the fly does that is itself not adaptation. That it's able to is the result of adaptation. And then the last thing to do is, and then I've lost my train of thought. I blame the gin.
That's fair.
But so I'll just say that like the level of like what would have to happen for this kind of thing to be true, for CET to work, would mean that you have an unconscious system. You have a series of molecules, a series of organ systems, a series of tissue systems that somehow know how to take DNA, change it, and then predict what's going to happen from that purposeful change. And then not only that, that purposeful change then somehow finds its way from the tissue that it was responding to into your germline to then get passed on. That's what would have to happen for this to work. This is why Lamarckian evolution doesn't work, right? This is why orthogenesis doesn't work. This is why vitalism doesn't work. This is why all of those things that were like popular in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that's why we discarded all that, because there is no biological mechanism to do it. He's literally just championing ideas that we like demolished over 100 years ago. I just don't understand like how he missed this in like Bio 101.
Oh, you reminded me of the last thing that he does, which is to just misunderstand what a phylogeny is. That's the last thing he does. He does that specifically with his rove beetles, and he doesn't talk about here. And I'm not going to talk about it much, but I just want to say he takes a paper about rove beetles, which is a family of beetles, and then he pretends that the paper that says that mimicry, which is copying what ants look and smell like, that paper says that it has occurred multiple times in different lineages of rove beetles. And he interprets that as you just take a generic rove beetle and place it among ants, and that adult rove beetle will then change to look like and smell like that particular ant. But if you know anything about the ontogenetics of insects, you will know that once you are an adult insect, you cannot then change your morphology because you have molted for the last time, and arthropods can only change their morphology between molts. So it's physically impossible for the thing he thinks that paper to say to be true. Like, it's literally impossible for arthropods to do this thing that he thinks they do, but he just says it anyway. And the paper says nothing of the kind. And honestly, I said this to Dan earlier in our chat. I was like, I'm disappointed he didn't talk about the rove beetles, because I love the degree to which he cannot understand that paper. It is amazing the degree to which he just looks at that paper and just makes up nonsense about it based on, I don't even know.
So we're going to jump a little bit ahead here because I want to get to the cavefish part, because we all love the cavefish example here.
I do love the cavefish.
So let's find, that is up to, let's see, I'm just waiting for it to see it. There it is. Now we're up to cavefish. Here we go, folks.
The Mexican cavefish.
Here we go. Let's do the cavefish.
Tetras, I believe.
Then respond very purposefully and in a very targeted way. And that is how adaptation happens. Here's another major research project that we're doing at ICR. It's on these cavefish. And those two fish that you see there on the screen, they can mate with each other. They're the same species.
There are three
One has
fish on the
eyes
screen.
and pigmentation.
Those
lives
are
in a
three.
stream. The other has no eyes and no pigmentation, and it lives in caves. How in the world does that happen? How do you go from sided and pigmented with other things to an unsided, hypopigmented in the cave? This is really cool.
Okay, so real quick, I want to say that you've asked two separate questions and conflated them into one, right? Because you've asked about hypopigmentation and eye loss. And those do not necessarily have to have the same cause, right? Different effects can have
Two
different
things.
Right. So what he's going to do is he's going to pretend that they have to have the same cause. Because one thing I want to point out is that in all of his experiments with these cavefish, you know what he's never gotten the cavefish to do? Is regrow their eyes.
He alludes to that right at the end. He alludes to it, and it's very disappointing.
It's because we actually have like a fairly decent idea about what has caused eye loss in these fish, right?
Right.
And we know like the genetic and developmental pathways that have caused eye loss. It's actually a mix of both an epigenetic marker as well as like genetic mutations. We have, I think it's over 200 QTLs at this point. That's quantitative trait loci that are correlated with eye loss. So we have it narrowed down pretty tight.
In his longer talk about this, he actually misrepresents yet another paper about genetics and eye loss in these specific Mexican cave tetras. And he pretends that what happens is if you just raise these tetras in light, they regrow their eyes. But what the paper actually said was that if you mate eyeless cave tetras from separate caves, their offspring will often have fully developed eyes because the mechanisms for eyelessness in the genetics are different between them, which means that when you combine them together, they end up with a complete set of functional genes that produce eyes.
Yep.
And he just, I don't know if he's lying or if the people that work for him that tell him what these papers mean are lying.
Yeah,
but
well,
someone along there.
If he knew even like the basics of Mendelian genetics, he would know follow it one more generation, right? And then you would expect to see the eyelessness sort back out, right?
You would
like
get the 3 to 1, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really basic Mendelian genetics at that point.
You expect creationists to understand basic Mendelian genetics?
Yes, I do actually, because I know that some
I expect high schoolers to understand basic Mendelian genetics.
That's not an answer to my question.
Oh, the super chat. That's a good super chat.
I got it. That is there. Car analogies about biology are autofallacious. That is a pun, and I appreciate it. That's Stephen G. Kleinard for $5. That's very generous and also very funny. Thank you, Stephen.
I love that one.
That's great. All right, let's keep hearing about cavefish.
Okay.
Damn it, Randy.
I mean, I do like cavefish.
Is going to give us a chance to test two separate theories for what's happening. Because if you turn to the evolutionary literature, they will say that the ability to make pigmentation is lost due to broken genes and broken systems. They will say the ability to make eyes is due to breakage. In fact, the entire mutation selection worldview is due to this whole idea of breaking something, and hopefully it just happens to be fruitful in another environment.
Okay,
so they say that this is due to random.
That is, so in a certain way, he's right? Because any evolutionary
hang on a second. Dapper, hang on one sec. I'm going to let it go like 10 seconds, and then there's kind of a natural break point in there. So just give me.
Well, this is fairly quick. I just want to say, one of the things that creationists love to do is talk about how some mutation breaks some gene, which basically all they mean is it no longer does the thing it did. You can define literally anything that evolution proposes happened as breaking something earlier. The fact that you have a jawbone is because you broke a gill arch. Sure, I guess so. Fine. Who cares?
The fact that we are motile throughout our entire lives is because we broke the tunicant development pattern.
Right.
And we never became sessile, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh no, your ear bones are because you broke your jaw. I guess, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like it doesn't mean anything. It's just this weird little rhetorical device that they use that sounds like, oh, gross, evolution is all about breaking things. It doesn't mean anything. That's all I had.
Mutations and due to survival of the fittest. That is their explanation. That is what you are taught.
That's because it's mathematically inevitable.
Explanation. Of course, we would have a completely different explanation for why that happens. I would say that the loss of that pigmentation or the change of that pigmentation is due to a modulatable system, a system that can be modulated up or down as needed.
Ooh. That's like just genes are modulatable systems. Has this guy never heard of enhancers?
No, I don't think he has.
Okay,
also,
fair.
One of the things that drives me crazy about rejecting natural selection is that natural selection is a mathematically provable inevitability if you have reproducing organisms with heritability, and different heritable characters can vary within that population, and they have effects on reproductive success of the organism that carries them. There is no way to avoid it. It has to happen.
This is like, and like what Dapper here is basically describing is the Price theorem, right? This is a theorem in the same level as the laws of gravity, right? It's like you
I would say it's a higher theorem than that.
It's inevitable if you have heritable variation, and really what we're talking about is covariance between the fitness and some trait. If that exists, then you have selection. Like it's virtually guaranteed to happen if you have a non-zero covariance between fitness and a trait, and that's a mathematical theorem, again, like Pythagorean's theorem. It is true in all universes.
That's why NASA can use it to design special antennae to cut through the interference of radiation from Jupiter for their Jupiter satellites and probes. They literally evolved antennae for satellites going around Jupiter with genetic algorithms. That's a thing NASA did.
That's really cool.
If natural selection can't work, then please explain NASA's special anti-radiation antennae. Please.
Also, just to like, for people who are not familiar with Randy Guliuzza, this stuff that we're talking about how this is like necessarily true, he doesn't believe it. He rejects it completely. In the same way that like the equivalent mindset to be in would be to reject the Pythagorean theorem.
Look, I'm going to say Randy Guliuzza is on the same level as Terrence Howard's 1 × 1 = 2. That's the same level of mathematical error that we're talking about here.
To reject natural selection or to question natural selection at this point, it to me is no different than calling the Earth flat or rejecting basic mathematics, which is what you're doing. You're rejecting basic mathematics to reject natural selection.
Well, Dapper, what's your phrase? Creationists are just flat earthers who are better at geography.
Yeah, that is exactly my phrase.
Of course, I would say it's due to innate control systems, which if you look for them, you're probably going to find them. I would say it's due to intrinsic sensors on these fish, and I would say it's due to internal logic. You know, this is important because the evolutionists will say creationists make no hypotheses. Creationists make no predictions.
I don't say that.
In general, I don't know. Like just think about the science friends. We don't say that. We actually take their predictions and show why they're nonsense all the time.
It's one of those things. Like creationists do make predictions and they do make testable hypotheses. They just routinely fail. Yeah, they just fail every time.
Yeah.
Well, they fail every time when they're distinguishable from actual scientific predictions, from actual scientific theories and hypotheses. Because sometimes creationist predictions are right. It's just that they're the same prediction that real science made. So like, okay, cool.
Yeah, and this is also like a complete like non-starter. Like this is not a comparison of two competing hypotheses. What he's doing right here, like this is not like we don't necessarily begin with the reason that something looks different is because of a random mutation. There's lots of reasons that things look different, and we've known like every farmer has known about this for 1,000 years that you can grow plants in different environments and get different responses to it, and that's not necessarily because of mutations, right? Like that's not some kind of like new novel thing. So what the two things that he's setting up here are not the correct hypotheses to be comparing against. Like when we go in and we tried to understand why these tetras have lost their pigment and lost their eyes, we looked at a slew of different things. This is why we did things like Mendelian crosses and stuff like that, is try to determine what is the genetic basis, if there is any genetic basis. You don't go in and just assume it has a genetic basis.
It's like that's why that paper that Randy misuses was written in the first place, was to explain how these things happen and why they happen and how we know.
Yeah.
And again, and I'll just add to this that if creationists think they have a better hypothesis for this stuff, they can get it published in real journals. They don't have to go through Answers Research Journal or whatever. They can try to get this stuff published in Genetics, because I bet the journal Genetics would be really excited if somebody had legitimate data showing an alternate mechanism to natural selection is actually responsible for all this stuff. That would be really cool and groundbreaking.
The problem is that they can, in theory, get these published if they could actually provide data that supported their hypothesis.
Yeah.
But we both know they can't.
Yeah, well, that's all they have to do if they want to be taken seriously. They have to meet the threshold that literally every real scientist meets.
Exactly. Provide data that support your hypothesis.
That's all you have to do. All you have to do.
Of course, unfortunately, that's impossible when you're wrong.
Well, you can clearly see that is wrong. I have a hypothesis. My hypothesis is these fish were engineered from the beginning of creation to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, and that includes caves.
That's not a hypothesis.
Yeah,
that's literally not a scientific hypothesis. My God, I'm teaching this next week. This is not a hypothesis. It's so important that people understand that hypotheses have to be testable and falsifiable, and they have to be based on natural rules and laws. You cannot invoke ghosts, goblins, demons, fairies, whatever, gods, creators. You cannot invoke those in a scientific hypothesis.
That's just your naturalistic bias breaking through.
As a scientist, yes, as a scientist, that is
you're just that's just you know, that's just your methodological naturalist bias that you're just keeping creationist on the outside because of your ideology.
Yeah,
I'm trying really hard to say this with a straight face.
If you didn't have an ideology, then you would let any kind of crazy, untestable nonsense in, obviously. Yeah. To which I would say then, yeah, that is an ideology. It's called empiricism. It's technically an ideology. And if you're not doing it, then what you're not doing is science.
Yeah, I mean, the science follows a series of presuppositions, just like any sort of philosophical position. Like you have to start off with a series of things, and one of those things happens to be we accept whenever we're doing science that nature is the only thing we can invoke. Does that mean nature is the only thing there is? No, we don't know that. But that's the presupposition you have to make to do science.
Because you can't measure, by definition, you can't measure anything else.
Exactly, right. Because it's not part of the natural world.
It's not. I'll say it this way: it's not strictly a philosophical position. It's also a practical limitation.
Yeah, how much does God weigh?
Figuring stuff out. Yeah. As soon as I'm open to hearing any complaints against methodological naturalism, as soon as the person making the complaint can also explain how we measure something that is supernatural. If your complaint comes with a method, then I'm open to hearing it.
Have you considered objective supernatural units? I'm not going to define that, but have you considered it?
I am now.
Okay.
And they're objective, you say? And it's a unit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Of supernatural. Of supernatural.
And I'm assuming it's a fundamental unit. We can't reduce it to other. Right. You know, it's not kilograms per whatever, right?
It's like joules or grams or something.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. And so is there what is it? An objective?
Is it here in the room with us now?
Is there? Can I go into France somewhere and find like a bell jar that has one unit in it?
Yeah. No, actually, you have to ask the brothers from the show Supernatural to hand you over the actual like reference.
The standard.
The standard, yeah. So they have it. They managed to get it from their dad back before he like died or turned into Satan or something. I don't know. I do know that the guy.
Those are two different things.
I do know that the guy who played Satan on that show blocked me on Twitter because I pointed out that 0.9 repeating is provably equal to 1, and he didn't like that.
That's hilarious. Speaking of people just Not liking math. All right, let's continue about the cavefish. I want to get to the part where he talks about eyes. Trust me, y'all are gonna love the part where he mentions eyes.
And I hypothesize that that change in pigmentation is due to a modulation. It's not due to broken things. So, wow, we can now do a test.
Those aren't
We
the
can
same
put
thing.
these things to a head-to-head test.
Just wait till he conflates the things here, folks. It is amazing the things he conflates in the next like minute and a half. Just watch.
As we're looking at pigmentation, let's just look at it. Here's a surface fish. Got the eyes. It's pigmented.
Yep.
Silvery and gray and all those things. Here is a cavefish. No eyes. Very little pigmentation. Kind of pinkish, whitish looking
Very
kind
little.
of fish.
No, not
What
really.
if I take this fish, this is a female fish, and I expose her back to sunlight? Same wavelength, same intensities, same duration, all of these kinds of things. If her genes are broken, she will maintain that same whitish pink color. She will not regain her pigmentation. If she was designed with a modulatable system that can be turned up and down, she will regain her pigmentation. And this is what she looks like in 32 days.
Cool, fish can tan.
Wow, that's right.
I was literally about to say the same thing. It's like, okay,
It's ridiculous.
if I put you out in the sun for 3 months, and then I put you in a cave for 3 months, like I've just done Guliuzza's experiment here.
Yeah, it's completely uninteresting. And the thing is, like, the only way it might be interesting is to say that, well, the pigmentation genes in these fish aren't currently broken. Okay, cool. I don't know what that's supposed to tell me about continuous environmental tracking, because fundamentally, for continuous environmental tracking to actually explain adaptation, it needs to cause changes to the genetic sequence of the organism in question. Tanning doesn't do that unless you're counting skin cancer.
Yeah, folks. It is hard to express how just amateur hour this is. Like, this is on the level with that Jensen thing where he's like, look, you say we can't do all this evolution after the ark, get all these cats from the cat kind ancestor, but a frog develops from a zygote in the span of just 2 years. Blah, blah, blah. And like, this is the level of we're talking about here. This is ridiculous. Literally, yeah, exposure to light leads to different outer covering like phenotypes, not even phenotypes, are just like, it's
like,
it's not even interesting, right? Like, there's a huge literature on pigmentation and many different organisms, and we've known for decades that there is a very large component of pigmentation that is environmental, right? It's in your diet, it's things that you're exposed to. Like, tons of things lead to differences in pigmentation on lots of different organisms that are completely unrelated to genes, other than the fact that the genes are producing the products that enable you to do it. But like, you don't have to have mutations to change your pigment. Like again, we've known this for a very, very long time.
What you're actually missing is that the fact that flamingos have a beta carotene rich diet of krill actually disproves evolution. You're missing that fact. That flamingo thing, boom, evolution disproved. Get out of here. But also, I want to point out
the whole time.
Randy thinks that the mechanism for pigmentation is the same as the mechanism for eye color. He already indicated that, right?
So not just eye color, but eyes. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked that, Dapper, because here I'm gonna let this play for a minute, but we're at about 31:55. We're gonna get to the eyes. I promise you.
Oh, good.
We're gonna get to eyes, and you're gonna love it. Trust me. We're gonna get there. Here we go.
Wow is right. Pigmentation is back. She looks like the surface fish. So
no, she doesn't.
This is like pounding these evolutionary assertions and stomping their guts out. They say we don't make hypotheses. They say we don't make predictions. Not only did I make a hypothesis, not only did I make a prediction, I put it as a head-to-head test with what you say, and look what happened.
Nothing.
And you know what? Nobody did this because nobody was thinking like this. By the way, here's
nobody thought I could give a fish a tan.
Like,
basically, yeah.
Publish me in Nature.
The level, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
This is literally no more significant than Randy spending a day at the beach and then thinking that that's worthy of a Nobel Prize because he spent the day at the beach.
You've adapted to being in the sun all day long. Congratulations.
Also, hey, everybody who's out there, wear sunscreen because skin cancer is real.
Wear sunscreen.
Male want pigmented too. Modulatable systems.
Yeah,
now,
TAMs.
let's do another experiment.
Let's do another experiment.
This pigmentation is really modulatable, or can be turned up and down. Let's take a surface fish and let's stick her in mimic cave water conditions.
Okay, let's do it.
Because we're going to make an Irish fish.
What should happen to her pigmentation in this case?
Make meat.
It should go down. There she is in 12 days.
Shocking.
12 days.
Randy, do you know why skin pigmentation was seen as a class marker in like medieval Europe? It's not because there was a genetic difference between the upper class and the peasants. It's because the upper class could spend most of their days in their manors and castles and mansions and not exposed to UV, whereas the peasants couldn't. That's it.
Had to be outside.
Yeah, all you've done is shown that just like a pale fish can become tan, a tan fish can become pale. Just like most organisms whose dermal structures are exposed to light differentially throughout their life. It is hard for me to express the degree to which this is just nothing.
Yeah. This is, I think, a reasonable question to Randy, do you know? No. The answer is no. The answer is always no. It's just based on this talk.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, based on every talk I've heard from him.
We're going to get to eye. Dapper, we're almost up to eyes. And I know, folks, you've been waiting for the eye explanation because you may have noticed that the cavefish taken into the sun did not regrow its eyes, and the surface fish taken into the cave did not lose its eyes. So let's hear what the explanation is for eyes.
It better be good.
Oh, it's great.
We're able to document that this pigmentation begins to decrease within hours.
Wow.
Hours of being placed in the simulated cave water conditions. So you can say to your friends, did you know that creationists have gone to a head-to-head test against your mechanism, and their mechanism says that they were engineered to do these things, and it happens. Now we're working on the eye.
I didn't know that because that's not what happens.
No, hang on. Sorry. Just give it. Ready? Nope. Ready for it?
Yep.
Eyes. Here it is.
Do these things, and it happens. Now we're working on the eyes.
Oh, good.
That's it. That's all he says about eyes.
Now
we're working on it. That's it. We're working on it.
How was putting them in different light levels not already working on it? What else does Randy think there is?
Because it didn't do the thing it should have done, Dapper. Therefore, they're still working on it.
Oh.
That's it. This is a whole discussion of eyes. We're working on the eyes. We're working on it.
This entire thing was just like the most embarrassing middle school science project. It's like, if I play Mozart to my plants, will they grow larger? It's like that level of like science project that is just like, honestly, it's kind of cringe. The whole thing was kind of cringe.
I think it might be closer to L. Ron Hubbard being convinced that he can hook up an e-meter to a plant and read its thetan levels from the plant after talking to it, which is a thing, by the way, that he did. That's some of the deep Scientology lore is as Ronnie Hubbard hooking up e-meters to plants to check to see if they have thetans. I don't know how I could possibly get it across to Randy or any of his fans that demonstrating that a fish can tan and being completely unable to use that mechanism to recover or lose eyes means nothing for any of your ideas about natural selection not being true. How do I explain that? It's like trying to explain to a Trump supporter that empathy is a good thing. I don't know how to do it.
You can't do it. Either you accept it or you don't. No, I'm with you. I don't know. And what I do know is that we have survived Randy Guliuzza. The last minute is just like him doing promo stuff. So we don't have to hear it.
I mean, you say that, but I might be about to have alcohol poisoning. So
fair. It's a lot.
That was actually worse than most of the talks that I've heard him talk about, because usually, at least, he goes into his reasons for saying these things, And they're all still dumb, but there's like a thing there, right? But in this, very rarely was there a there. And that's, I think, what maybe frustrates me the most.
Yeah, I just keep waiting for like the theory to appear. You know, he always talks about how he has this alternative theory,
right?
And then he has a name for it, but like there's no mechanism to it, and it's not actually explaining any data in a way that makes predictions or that helps me understand biology in any real way. I'm just, you know, I'm perpetually lost by Randy Guliuzza.
And I just, as a little preview, friends and folks, we will have further opportunity to be lost by Randy Guliuzza because he gave another talk at this conference, which I fully intend to cover. And if you think I'm not going to recruit my friends to suffer through it with me, let me tell you, I am going to recruit my friends to suffer through it with me.
There isn't enough gin in the world.
Meat Permits Tad apparently agrees. He says for $2, or I should say they say, because I don't know. I don't know you. For $2, every part of my brain hurts. That is all of us. Yes.
Yeah. The thing with Randy is that most other creationists that I talk about, at least the ones that work at the major, like the big three, right? So we have ICR, we have CMI, and we have AIG. Those are what I consider the big three. Most of the people who aren't Randy have ideas. But by that I mean, I know what they're trying to say. I know what the mechanism is that they're proposing, and I can assess it on that level. But when Randy talks, I don't even know what the idea is that he's trying to propose to me. Like, when he says continuous environmental tracking and sensing the environment and whatnot, and that causes adaptation, I don't know how to translate that into a physical phenomenon occurring in organisms that I could even assess for viability. I don't know how to do that. And Randy, that's like step zero. If you think you have a hypothesis, step zero is, what does it physically mean?
Yeah. Explain it.
Literally outside of just like acclimation or plasticity, you know, like just the ability of an organism to respond, to move out of the sun and into the shade, right? Like if that's what we mean, then we're just talking about things that are well understood already, and that's not even an evolutionary mechanism.
And things that in no way contradict natural selection. These are things that everyone who accepts natural selection, and even most of the people who don't, already know about. Right? Like everyone knows that if you touch a stove and then you pull your hand away, that's a thing that your body does. You don't even have to think about it. But according to Randy, apparently that's adaptation. But is it in any way that explains the differences between tigers and lions? That's what I need from Randy. Randy, if on the very extreme off chance that you ever watch this, I want to know how continuous environmental tracking specifically causes the difference between Panthera tigris and Panthera leo, or any other similarly related group of organisms, right? Tell me how continuous environmental tracking explains the difference between Canis lupus and Canis latrans. To pick any pair of organisms in the same genus that have observable differences that are heritable, and tell me how your idea does it.
I think that is a wonderful place to leave our discussion of Randy Guliuzza and his ideas, such as they are. So I have one more super chat to mention here from Roshana Localized Standard Compare Keller for $1.99. Kent doesn't get to be a big three. Kent is a dime store cult. Kent is great value cult leader. He doesn't get to be anything.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovand, Tapioca Weasel, Arrow Dodger, Caleb Anderson, Dan Sheedy, Eleron Teller, Phil Cavara, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostock Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Sphincter of Doom, Volis, North Texas Fossils, and John Ackerman. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.